debate, a kind of impromptu debate, because Lawrence Wilkerson, who used to work for the Bush administration, he was the chief of staff for Colin Powell, and then and Phyllis Bennis, who works in some kind of think tank. I would characterize her as a leftist when it comes to foreign policy. That's what she really talks about. And the reason I'm saying is impromptu because these two have been coming on the Analysis News or the Real News Network together forever, always on the same side, kinda. I would categorize both of their views, what you would associate with kind of leftist views of foreign policy, although Lawrence Wilkerson is, of course, a Republican. But, when you're talking a bit, if you were just going to stereotype it and generalize it, until this debate. So they're talking about the US withdrawal, and Phyllis Bennis is like, there is a chance that will most likely, she says, even get a little bit worse with the withdrawal. But I mean, these 20 years have done nothing to improve the situation, really, really on the margins. She says, yes, that's true. There are like female politicians now, and the scientists, there are more women. But she points out that only 25% of Afghanis live in big cities. The other 75% are all in little villages, spread across the country. And there it's much harder to see, like, progression for them over this time. But she says, anyway, withdrawing the troops doesn't mean, you forget about Afghanistan diplomacy and blah, blah, blah. But then Lawrence Wilkerson, suddenly out of nowhere, he just starts saying, like, it was surprising. He's like, yeah, I don't think we should be withdrawing out of Afghanistan. And his arguments get more and more surprising because first he starts with a strategic argument. So he's like, it's not to the US benefit and strategy. And Paul J is like, well, it also depends who you're thinking about in the US, the population or like this part of the administration, but who. But sure. But then he kind of builds on that, saying like Afghanistan is different. We cannot leave Afghanistan. Things will get much, much worse. It is so hard to get into Afghanistan. We'll lose so much like power and position to China and all this. And then what kind of makes it worse, I found, was that then he really started reverting back into Bush administration. I feel like those kind of arguments that, we're going to make it better for the Afghanis by being them. I find like once he starts reaching that point, I mean, it's even not just a strategic discussion. So I pulled a little quote for him, and I want to see what you think of it. He wrote that he said that if you stay in Afghanistan long enough, the people will get their act together just for the simple reason that you're there as a chapeau for their doing that. And then he says, our strategy militarily wasn't good enough. From the beginning, if we had a better military strategy, could have achieved more. But it was shocking. Phyllis Bennis was shocked. Paul J was shocked. I was shocked. All the viewers in the comment section were shocked. And in fact, it's one of our own viewers who told me about the video. Oh, Mario, so I'm sorry. Something their name is escaping me right now. I'll put his little comment here. So he told me to go check it out because he knows that we enjoyed the Analysis News. But yeah, I guess my main takeaway is even that it was just shocking. That's my first one. And I'm like, was Lawrence Wilkerson faking his transition these past 10, 15 years? Did he kind of wake up on the wrong side of the bed? Why didn't he have this debate the last 500 times he's been on the Real News with Phyllis Bennis or the Analysis News?
He's not a lefty though. He's basically a sort of a nationalistic isolationist American. But I guess in case I was
Not
shocked
isolate, not isolation,
I
whatever
would
that
say
one. Not with his comments that he was making today. I mean, this is the opposite. He wants more
no
military
that
involvement in Afghanistan.
he wants, yeah, he's sort of wants a more strategic thinking rather than a just hit and run thinking, which was what happened like in Iraq, which was pretty much hit their oiler, get the oil and let's go back, guys. Yeah, yeah. And in a way, you could argue that, if you fuck up a country, you gotta stay to clean it up a little, at
Yeah, but
least
he
to stay.
wasn't talking about cleaning it
But
up.
no, no, he was though. He was saying that if you have a long-term strategy and all that, I would say, okay, if you, but do you see that in the current or administration or any future administration of U.S.? Look at the Republicans right now. I don't see anybody who's up for doing something what Marshall, like what was Truman and the wise men, Dean Acheson and people they did after World War II, which was let's rebuild Europe and South Korea and Japan as future market for ourselves. Even though, by the way, they did it in a very brutal and dictatorial way. For example, in Korea, like by supporting basically dictators who were sympathetic to their cause. But they did also build infrastructure, build cities, blah, blah, blah. I don't think they are into that anymore. I don't think I mean, you might wish they are, and okay, let's wish American government wants to build a better Afghanistan. But the reality, it seems that since US troops have gotten their security issues have gotten worse, Taliban controls more of the opium trade and sorry, because of lack of Taliban, there is more of opium trade. And see, you hear airstrikes from America killing civilians as well as Taliban killing civilians every day. So it's just, to me, it seems like, okay, nice dream you have, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with that. And I think this part you understood better than me. So he uses the South Korea example to kind of make his point. And I really don't know much, but when we're talking right now, you seem to know a
Well,
little bit more. Kind of Marshall Plan kind of thing they did in South Korea. Is that what he was getting into?
well, South Korea, Japan, and Western Europe got a lot of help from US in terms they got financial assistance to develop their economies. That was the big one. Bigger than that was probably they were part of nations called the most favored nations. I think
Mm.
even Europeans were part of that. I think only Japan and Korea or something, which meant that they had tax-free access to US markets. They could sell their products. That's how Japanese industries became Japanese industries because they had a massive advantage in their access to American markets, basically. So yeah, I mean, there are empires, all empires sometimes go to build, and you know, you read about Romans. I think if I'm like Marx was in favor of British Empire over the Indian subcontinent. I think Christopher Hitchens defended the Roman conquest of Britain. So empires can be positive, can lead to positive developments as well, I think. But not all that. You have to go case by case basis. And I don't see any sudden change in in the Pentagon that no, no, now we have to focus for the security of the world, not just for like Afghani people or Afghanistani people. Nobody sadly cares about them but for the security of or for our strategic interest, I don't see that. I just see a bunch of people who want to, trade opium and run guns. That's what seems to be the case.
Yeah, no, I don't think I disagree too much with your kind of good faith argument there about being an empire. But
They're
yeah,
very like the current defense secretary of defense in the U.S. Was on the board of Lockheed Martin, or is
yeah,
one of those major like weapon manufacturers. So they're very brazen about it. It's not like
yeah.
they're hiding it or oh no no we are good people. No, they're clear. It's just you have to take reality for what it is. Sadly.
Yeah, yeah. So just one last point on this, and people please like and subscribe, and then we're going to talk about Norman Finkelstein. Is that this video, this debate that they had, was kind of supposed to be about reparations, I think, and if they should be made to Afghanistan. And Phyllis Bennis is like, yeah, of course, some reparations should be made and money should be paid. And Wilkerson is like, yeah, sure, but then you have to give reparations to the Iraqis, to the Yemenis, to Somalians, and then Phyllis Bennis is like, yeah, sure. And he's like, oh, okay, so now you're going to see when the tax people show up at your door, yeah, all you liberals and stuff, when the taxman shows up, yeah, you still want to give your money. And then Phyllis Bennis is just like, 51 cents of all taxes or 57 cents are going to the military, so you could use that money. So, I mean, they kind of cut off the interview there. I'm not sure what was going to be Wilkerson's like next like point after.
I feel the interview got somewhat personal. They're gonna come after my money, my tax. They're like, fuck
Yeah,
that.
no,
I'm
exactly.
not.
I mean, so they stopped it. I hope they pick it up again and this time have a proper debate. I mean, yeah, it was an impromptu just. random debate that emerged out of nowhere. It was interesting to see.
Yeah, fair enough.
But
Fair
yeah,
enough.
so then Norman
Let's
Finkelstein.